thankfully, critical parts of the machine are falling apart, which gives me hope. I mean, CNN is basically a Democrat super PAC that no one watches. Facebook is cratering, which is really, really interesting to see. Rumble, which you and I really care about, is ascending. So there are certain trends right now that kind of go into maybe the machine isn't as strong as it once was. Americans' trust in government is an all-time low. Americans' trust in corporations are at all-time low. You're starting to see people care more about local than national trends, which is really, really important. So I think the machine is way weaker than it was even a year ago.
I'm Dave Rubin, and joining me today is the host of the CHARLIE KIRK Show, the founder of Turning Point USA, and the author of the MAGA Doctrine, the only ideas that will win the future. CHARLIE KIRK, old friend, welcome back to the Rubin Report.
Dave, you're a good friend. Honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
We've done this a couple times, and I thought, how can I approach this interview in a way that's a little different than what we've done before? So I thought we'd start off, give me your top 10 reasons you love Joe Biden.
Top 10 reasons I love Joe Biden. That's, I will say he's actually made me prioritize things in life that matter. Not to say politics don't matter.
Yeah.
But it's been such a dumpster fire. You have to kind of look outside of all the madness and you're like, okay, what really matters in life, right? Like what exactly gives you purpose and meaning? Because obviously the things that, I used to look at the presidency as something I revere, and I guess I still do, and I love my country, but he's been so awful. It's like, okay, there's a couple of things I can control in my life, like family and relationships, friendships, career, and I'm going to focus on those things. And it's kind of one of the few things I want to thank Joe Biden for is he has reinforced, at least for me, things that I control and things I cannot control. Unfortunately, I can't control the southern border. I can talk about it; it's wide open, and it's a total disaster. But besides that, I'm not sure what else I would put on that list, Dave.
I thought maybe you could come up with three. I thought maybe there were going to be three, but I'll accept that. But for a guy like you, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I guess if you want to kind of do the whole glass half full thing and the perpetual optimist thing, and the best thing about being surrounded is you can shoot in any direction thing, which is basically, look, I do think that there's been unintended consequences of what this regime has been trying to implement, which is the rise of the citizen and
I knew you were going to get there. That was one of the three I had in there.
Right. And like the homeschooling revolution and people really caring about their country again. And there is a window, there's an opportunity, there's a chance, there's a sliver. I don't think it's by any chance certain that this backfires on them so dramatically that it could be a political realignment, the likes of which our generation we haven't seen in 30 or 40 years.
Do you believe in the machine enough to believe that something like that could happen? Because that's the direction I thought you were going to go, because it's like everything is so bad, everything is so upside down, even for guys like us who expected this thing to be bad. It's worse than most of us could have imagined. But do you think the machine will allow, like just in the last couple of days, watching the narrative on COVID shift, like, do you think it'll allow what should happen to happen, that the voice of the people will actually be heard?
Well, thankfully,
between the media and the whole thing. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, no, for sure, of course. Yeah, thankfully, critical parts of the machine are falling apart, which gives me hope. I mean, CNN is basically a Democrat super PAC that no one watches. Facebook is cratering, which is really, really interesting to see. Rumble, which you and I really care about, is ascending. So there are certain trends right now that kind of go into maybe the machine isn't as strong as it once was. Americans' trust in government is an all-time low. Americans' trust in corporations are at all-time low. You're starting to see people care more about local than national trends, which is really, really important. So I think the machine is way weaker than it was even a year ago, and let alone 5 years ago. I think that there is kind of like a natural law component to this, where if you try to build a multi-trillion-dollar oligarchy or oligopoly, I should say, the laws of gravity are probably going to push back against you at some point. There will be leaks and dissension, civil war, fracturing, and you're seeing a lot of that, not just within the Democrat Party, but within a lot of the superstructures that you and I believe the actual power is vested in. So, look, I could have a cynical take where I'm like, you know what, these people always have power, the infrastructure is impenetrable. But I'm not so sure of that. I think that there is a revival to challenge all these institutions. And Dave, you've played a really important part in this, which is those of us that love freedom and love the Constitution as the greatest political document ever, we're building our own infrastructure. We're building our own machine. And that's been a really exciting trend. I think the regime is really surprised by it. I think they're shocked, quite honestly, that we've been able to kind of stand up a YouTube competitor, a payment processing competitor, a Patreon competitor like Locals. So quickly, you're starting to see a higher education competitor of University of Austin. And all of a sudden, this monopoly they had on these certain goods and services and credentialing institutions is being challenged in a very serious way. But they're still way more powerful than us. There's no doubt. But I'm optimistic that there might be some legitimate fault lines that are going to materialize in their demise.
That would be a slightly better Great Reset than the Great Reset that they've been telling us about. But I'm curious for you. Look, I know you off camera too at this point, but I don't know that I've ever fully asked you this before. Like, you were so obviously a close associate and through Turning Point in the Trump's campaign, and you wrote the book, The MAGA Doctrine, the whole thing. To go from that, and I would go to Turning Point the night that I met Trump at Mar-a-Lago. We were at dinner that very night there, and it was after an event you put together and all that stuff. And I say that because you were so associated with that. Now he's not in power. And I just wonder for you personally, like, what did the last year show? I'm not talking about the political part of, my guy's not in power anymore, but just like you were part of something that was fun and cool, at least from our perspective, and now you ain't in it. Or, the thing exists, but it's not in power anymore. So what is that just personally for you like?
Well, first, it was really demoralizing, not from an access standpoint or the fact you could call the president, whatever. It was just kind of demoralizing for the country, right? I mean, especially the month of January, we're like, okay, at New Year's, I remember thinking, all right, okay, Biden's going to be president. At the very least, we can win these Senate races in Georgia. We can have a check and balance, separation of powers. And then January 5th happened. They're like, okay, we lost that. And then January 6th happened, which was a catastrophe, right, for a variety of different reasons. And so it was a demoralizing couple weeks in 2021. And our team at Turning Point USA, which has always been educationally focused, and our team at the Charlie Kirk Show, which has obviously been very aligned with the Trump doctrine and his worldview, we're going, what do we stand for? And we really went to work. I traveled 330 days in the year of 2021 and went to campuses and churches, and we didn't talk a lot about Trump, honestly, and we didn't talk about Biden either. More than anything else, we talked about what it meant to be an American and what we stood for and why we stood for it. And it was definitely this moment where I also had to kind of reintroduce myself to a lot of people that just kind of knew me as, oh, you're the guy that defends Trump, right? And it was, I think, very well received in a lot of different ways. And I also think it forced our team and our show to go a level deeper. I spent more time in 2021 of reading deep books and spending time in very complex philosophy and really challenging my ideas and why I believe it and where does it come from, because it wasn't just kind of like, okay, the left is out of their mind. We have to defend the president we have because he's doing a really good job. And you could kind of get really used to that, right? But then all of a sudden, when he's displaced from power, there's a lot of people that are saying, okay, do we want to go back to the Liz Cheney kind of way of doing things? Or why do we want borders to be controlled? And so you have to kind of come from that with an approach that is philosophically based and rooted in a natural rights doctrine and also in timeless ideas while also respecting the fruits of the Enlightenment, all these really important things. And so I think that I think we're better because of it, honestly. I think our show's more interesting. I think our organization is stronger. I think we're reaching more people. And I'm not to say that I'm thankful. I mean, the country's in horrible shape. But I think we were able to use what was an adversarial situation or a set of circumstances to our advantage.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop yelling, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.